Okay, yeah, we get those wee notes too. All right, so good morning, everybody, and welcome to the meeting of the 25th of January 2021 under unusual circumstances again, where this is the first time we've all gone out online rather than having some inside and some out all over the place. And thank you for those that have issues with their internet to find other places. I know it's going to be a difficult time, but everyone's doing very well at this stage to do it. And just from what I can see, there only appears to be one person missing at this stage. So for whatever reason, I will put in an apology for Councillor Douglas. Is there a seconder?
Sure.
Who was
that, sorry?
Abel.
Abel, thank you. All those in favour?
Right.
And just raise your hands is the easiest way, I think. Leave of absence. Are there any requests for leave of absence during this time? There don't appear to be.
No.
Any conflict of interest in regards to any items on this agenda? It is a small agenda. None. Okay, so we'll go directly into public forum and welcome Marie to give us an update on where she is at. I've certainly read all your information there, Marie, and yeah, thank you, and looking forward to hearing from you. So the floor is yours, or the screen is yours.
Morena, Your Worship, Mayor Tong, and Morena to other councillors. I don't know if Mr. Paul Duffy's there, but Morena to him as well. What I've been doing in Southland for a long time is working on who is a Southlander and what makes up a Southlander. And I've been also speaking with Wayne Marriott for quite a long time now. And I wish to explore the people who actually make up Southland. There's approximately about 140 different cultures living here. But if you take Africa as one nation, there's 54 states in Africa, so you can't call one African whom I might interview as all of Africa. It's not representative. And the same with India. But I want to go back a long way. I've got all my lilies all over my hands. I want to go back, working from home. I want to go back a few decades and go right back to when Southland first started. I want to interview the people. So if anybody knows Carl Wood, the lawyer in Queenstown, he actually his direct line came from George Naismith, who was born in Scotland and immigrated to Southland, he was a tele clerk and lived on Stewart Island, where he worked in the postal services way back in the 1800s. Now, Carl is a direct descendant in a bloodline, and his sister has got the 6th and 7th generation of Southlanders. Susan Wood actually married Tony Ross, who was the lead singer of The Vision. So they've collectively got quite a bit of history belonging to Southland. There's the Hungarian families who arrived in Southland. Mr. Kokay, he assisted other immigrants to come out to Southland. Mr. Collick was another man, and the Racy family also came out, although they came out later. Bridget Kelly was one of the 3 wives, so she was called Delia, that Nathaniel Bates had. He had 33 children. 2 of his other wives died. The Barrys from Oropuki, they came out from Ireland. One of their people, he died in the SS Tararua, John Barry. He was on his way to Melbourne to join his brothers over there in the bakery business. I also wish to explore all the sealers and whalers who married into local Kati Mamoi, Waitaha and Ngaitahu iwi, the Ryans, the Bradshaws, the Browns, Spencers. They've all got solid links to Southland. Now, Wayne Marriott is very keen for the Southland story to be told, and I'd invite you all to please read the references. You don't need to read the big blurb that I've put. That was for the Arts, Culture and Heritage weekend that I went to try and see if I could raise funds for this project. And of course, I wasn't successful, but one thing it did do for me was evaluate what the cost of the project was. Now, I also want to talk about and write about and interview the Yugoslavians and the Italians that built the power station at Manapuri, the White Russians who arrived in the late 50s and 60s and who ultimately left because they weren't allowed to build their Russian Orthodox church. The people from Netherlands who came, the Belgians who built our wharf down here in Bluff. I also met a doctor from Africa who came from Mumbai, and that's where the original song Wimaway came from, written by Solomon Linda way back in 1939. There's all interesting facts in that about people of Southland. My first phase is to seek information from local councils, museums, farmers groups, culture societies such as the Irish, Dutch, Scottish, multicultural, Polynesians communities, libraries, newspapers, and word of mouth to locate many Southlanders living here. Ultimately, I'd like to interview about 100 people. And when I say about, I mean it will be a selection, and also photograph them. And this then becomes the story of Southlanders. Phase 2, the information collected will be developed and will provide a physical record of the Southlanders. I'm aware I've only got a few minutes to speak, so I'm probably like young and galloping here. Phase 3 is to photograph the people who have been interviewed. You see, the Begg brothers, Hall Jones, All Bells, Eva Wilson, Joe McIntosh, they've all gone. There's nobody doing this sort of work now, and I want to be a small part of it. So in a nutshell, my whole project about who is a Southlander is to research the people of Southland through the many organisations. I will interview a select group of people. I will photograph them as well. And this combined research will be available for all Southlanders forevermore to see, and it can be added onto, you know, for anybody else that comes along. I'm a photojournalist, and I have undertaken quite a few projects. I've written a book, Return to Monte Casino. My sad thing is that I self-published, so it could never be included into the book awards, because the Booker Awards are an in-house publishing prize. Also went to Belgium and France. I documented the executed soldiers from World War I, and I was employed on behalf of the Ryan family, but I included the 5 families of the executed soldiers who were judicially murdered in World War I often think. So I have got experience with this, and through my journalism, I learned the technique of research. What I am speaking to you about today is to let you know that I'm in the community and I'm trying to gather this information and everything. Through that experience in the culture and heritage, the weekend that we had, we all did our budgets, and it was quite revealing. Now, I'm not here with my hand out. It was more to really, if anything can be done to help me, it will be the cost of petrol. It's phenomenal for me to drive around all these towns and to interview people. It's because I live in Bluff, and it's Southland has got many borders, I know, but to really reach out to them, I am including Queenstown, because rightly so, Queenstown belongs to Southland, I believe, through health, education and finances. The tourism belongs to Otago, I believe, way back in the day when I was a journalist, that was so. So the whole, I've wrapped up my project in quite a few minutes, but as you know, that is before you. Is it the hub, Fiona? What is it called?
Yeah.
So anybody's invited, but I would like you to read my references, because they tell the story about Peter Arnett, he's a Pulitzer Prize winner. He calls me tenacious, and I am. I don't give up on anything. I got money from Southland Culture and Heritage quite a few years ago, about 1998, to actually develop this program into the towns of Southland. Well, it's sort of morphed into who lives in those towns now. And if anybody's got any questions they would like to ask me, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Marie. Certainly that was very good brief, and the documents you've got on the hub are very well presented as well. And you did right what you said there. I couldn't find anywhere where you were having your hand out, so it's interesting that you haven't, because this is a massive project and one that will, you know, sit on a coffee table with ease, because I've gone through the return to Mighty Casino with Tim Shabold and co, and there's certainly a fantastic record there. But is there any questions from any councillors?
If I may, Gary.
Yep,
it's
Councillor
Paul
Duffy.
here. Kia ora, Marie, how are you? Good to see you. Just a question. I heard you mention, did you apply to Urunga and
Yes.
were you unsuccessful with that?
Correct. They gave me a tick for art. They gave me a tick for culture. Unfortunately, I didn't meet the, no, they gave me a tick for art and heritage. I didn't meet the culture side of it, which is a wee bit unusual because the whole project is about the multicultures living in Southland.
Mhm.
Sure. And is that the door closed, or is there a possibility to go back with a revised application?
I believe there's a lot of areas I could apply to right throughout Southland, but I reckon I need a higher IQ than what I've got just to actually write the applications. They're very well involved to get the door open for anybody to even look at me.
Yeah, but that Tauranga, which I think fits this
I
beautifully.
thought it did too, and unfortunately I was declined.
But does that mean the door is shut, or you can apply again with a different application sort of thing?
Well, I don't know how many years I've got left in me for this research. I've been doing it in the background for a while. I have reproached them. I've gone back to them. I've approached them again, and they said that I could apply in writing. So it's not exactly closed.
Yeah,
But
okay.
we've lost Angela Newell as our one-stop shop here in Southland, and she was excellent for working through. So as far as I know, I have been declined, and I don't think I can apply again, although the lady on the phone said that they are open every year for applications.
So maybe Councillor Duffy, you might like to have an offline with Marie and just give us some
Yeah, I think
advice.
so.
And,
I think so, yeah.
And Councillor Owen, you've got a fairly in-depth knowledge of some of this stuff too in regards to seeking out funds, because, I think it's from what I've seen on the hub in your presentation, I think it's very, very relevant for Southland. And I know some of this has been recorded, the Kokay, the Colic stories, and etc. But to bring it all together.
Well, that is it. That's to bring it all together. And it's the Stewart Island family, like the Naismith, like Carl Wood. It's the Flemings. I've met the great-granddaughters of the Flemings flour mill, the people that come out from Scotland. That's all been recorded as well. But as Wayne Marriott said, we want to tell the story of Southland so that you can have an exhibition. You can do a book of it if somebody, like it might be Fonterra Book of Southland, SBS Book of Southland, whatever. But ultimately, it'll be an exhibition first with a documentary of each family.
Yeah. Very good. Any other questions of Marie?
Hi, Gary. And hi, Marie.
Tom. Welcome.
Yeah, no, thank you, guys. Marie, I enjoyed reading your book and, having a father that, fought in the Second World War and was captured. Yeah, did remember now. And I certainly appreciate you recording that recording that history. It's such an important part of who we are. So, I wish you well on your journey.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I will speak with Mr. Duffy at some time.
Yeah, I think that would be a good start, wouldn't it, Councillor Duffy, just to have a catch up there and see if that.
No, I'd be happy. I'd be happy with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get those details swapped. Fiona might be able to swap those details.
Yep, I'll sort that out between Marie and Councillor Duffy.
Thank you
for the opportunity. I just wanted to let you know what was going on in the background.
No, appreciate that. Thank you so much. And you're welcome to stay with us, but you've probably got other things to do.
Yeah, don't know what, housework. But thank you
Okay.
very much for your time. So
Okay.
how do I get out of here, Fiona?
Just go to the top and leave the meeting.
Okay, I'm a very analog person, Mr. Tong. I like old cameras. I like black and white film. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Fiona. Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye. Okay, so next item on the agenda, extraordinary items. There aren't any. Confirmation of council minutes for the 17th of December. I'm happy to move those minutes as I was there. Is there a seconder? Councillor Rudenclaw. All those in favour? Against?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Awesome. All right, we'll move into the agenda. Item 7.1 is the proposal under policy and strategy is the proposal for the new Northern pool rate. And we have Nicole
And Kelly.
going to be presenting on this. They'll be there somewhere.
Yep.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. This is similar to a report that you had previously for the Adalasa Community Board. So Northern Community Board have had an approach from the two pools in the area seeking funding. They've had approaches in the past, and in the consultation that they've done, or they haven't ended up supporting establishing a new pool rate, but they have wanted to talk to their community about this again. So because council is responsible for setting rates, we're really seeking your support before we go out and do any consultation. What the board has done is they've gone through that process of considering who benefits from the pools and therefore who should make a contribution and how that rate might be set. So the report outlines what the proposal is. They had some, not disagreement, but they felt like they should talk to their community about where the rate should be collected from. So some people felt like it should be over the whole community board area, and others felt like it should be those areas nearer the pools, which was an option being represented by 3 of the hall rates, but excluding the area to the north of Ethel and Garston. So they are looking to consult with their community about the proposal and about the way it will be rated. And as I said before we do that, we just wanted to let the council know and seek your support for going ahead. Councillor Scott or Kelly, do you have any other comments that you would want to add? Or Councillor Douglas as well. I think you attend that meeting as well. Yeah, sorry.
That's all right, Nicole. Thank you for that. I support this in principle. I firmly believe that every person has a right to learn to swim and to develop water skills, and we need pools to do that. So it's just the method that we use is going to be important, and we're going to, if this is passed, we'll put it out for consultation, and we'll get active feedback from our communities as to what their opinion is. So I do support that and 100%.
I'll just jump in there too quickly. So we have discussed it with the board around our approach as well. Pre the red light, recent red light setting, we had discussed doing some drop-in sessions. So we'll have another conversation around the board with that. But we had sort of thought we would take a similar approach to what we've done with the Adalasa pool rate survey, which has been direct mail outs to all ratepayers. We've had an online survey, and we've also had boxes at the local stores in the Adalasa area where people can drop their surveys back off, and I'm just going to head up and get them this week. So we have discussed with the board undertaking a similar approach for Northern, and they've been quite happy with that.
Thank you. Councillor Owen, you've got a question.
Thank you. Yeah, just a question. Previously, when we've discussed targeted rates as an option for as a mechanism, we've been advised by staff that there was a bit of reluctance around that because there was some sort of review being done on targeted rates. Where is that sort of review at, and how does that impact this particular?
I think what the paper talks about is, like, what we're trying to do is get alignment with the way that we're rating for for the same activity across the whole district. That's what we're trying to do. So in all of the other new pool rates that have been set up, they have been established across the whole community board area. And this one is different in that one of the options that they're looking at is that, but the other one is to do with a smaller sub area. So that's actually the aim with the targeted rates, was actually to have consistency across the whole of Southland District. And the way that council was looking to head was have those rates set across the whole board area. But like I said, there was quite a bit of disagreement at this board about, well, not disagreement, but they didn't have a clear agreement on the fact that everybody in the board area benefits. So they're looking to ask the community about that. And so that may result in us heading in a direction that isn't in line with our objective to have it set across the whole board area and have consistency across all areas. But like I said, there are a number of pool rates that are currently set on a smaller sub area at the moment, so it's not inconsistent with our current approach. The other targeted rates that I think council that we've talked about reviewing is the hall rates in totality, but there's quite a lot of work to do with that in terms of which halls are we retaining, which halls are we having discussions about consolidating, and all of that is sort of wrapped up in the discussion about those targeted rates as well. Does that answer your question, hopefully?
I guess not really. I probably didn't explain it very well. So I think Anne had mentioned before that there was some sort of, it must be through central government somewhere, some sort of review of voluntary targeted rates system. So I guess that potentially we could get an update from Anne at some point on where that's at and how that impacts.
It's actually a different type of targeted rate. So that's actually where they had the insulation schemes and they were rating for repayment of those. So under the new Credit Contracts Act, they are actually treated as a loan and you have to comply with the new requirements of the Credit Contracts Act. I'm pretty sure that's what Ian would have been referring to, those sorts of targeted rates.
Thank you.
Okay, we follow that one up later, Anne, unless did you have your
Yeah, I will follow that up with Karen because I'm actually not sure exactly what that was in reference to. So I might just have to understand the situation just to comment further.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think the quote in your paper was the community had different views, or community board had different views. So it would be good to get this out there for everybody. Rob, did you want to say something there?
Thanks, me, Tom. Yeah, I can just reiterate what's already been said, and I think it's important that it goes out for that important step of community consultation now to get the wider views. But when Kelly said that the Atlas's approach, and I think it's been quite successful with the feedback, quite a good amount of feedback from the community. And I think, yeah, if we can do the same thing this way, it'll be a good step forward.
Okay, so you're happy to move item 7.1?
Yep.
Okay, Councillor Scott's moved item 7.1. Unless there's any further discussion, is that a second, yep. Councillor Fraser? Seconded by Councillor Fraser. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Perfect. Thank you for that. Just what I've got is here that I've just found a shortcut on this. You don't have to go and find the mute, unmute thing. You can just press the space bar. Well, it does on mine anyway. So just try that next time you need to speak. See if that's a bit easier to do than try and find the mute, unmute thing. Next item on the agenda, reports on the financial report, and that's going to be Brea's going to present that.
Good morning, Your Worship, councillors. Today I will present the financial report for the period to 30 November 2021. I will take this report as read. The purpose of this report is to provide council with an overview of the financial results for the 5 months to 30 November 2021. Operating income is 1.79 million, or 42% below projection for the year to date, with some of the reasons for these variances are corporate services income's lower than projected, largely due to the investment income being lower than budget. As we've previously discussed, the council have met informally to work out the approach for this, and council staff and its advisors are working to recommend to council potential fund managers to work through this process, which will occur shortly. Sewage and stormwater income, 412,000 and 415,000 lower than projection respectively, due to the release of the stimulus grant income based on project process. Operating expenditure is currently 2.5 million, or 6% below projection for the year to date. Some of the reasons for this is streetscapes costs are 241,900 under projection due to the combination of reduced costs in gardening, mowing and street litter bins. These costs are expected to be incurred during the summer growing and visitor season. Parks and reserve costs are 152,000 less than projection, primarily due to the current buoyant market impacting council's ability to engage contractors to undertake some of the smaller maintenance projects, and investment operating costs, which are 631,000 lower than projected. As mentioned in the income section, the borrowing strategy is not yet commenced, resulting in lower level external borrowings. Capital expenditure is 1.4 million, or 10% lower than projection for the year to date. Stormwater capital costs are 390,000 less than projection. The capital program is currently being delivered as related stimulus work, and the projects are incurring costs slightly behind the phase budget. And then additionally, the commencement date of the Woodlands project has been deferred to align with school holidays to minimise the disruption, and is now expected to complete in the last quarter, which is impacting that. The water supply capital costs of 900,000 less than projection, largely as a result of the phasing of the projects. The stimulus project of the AC pipe renewal and the New Zealand drinking water standard compliance have had delays compared to the phase budget, while the lakefront renewal costs are less than expected for the period. Council had 8.2 million funds on call at 30th November 2021, 6.2 million in term deposits and 20 million of external borrowings with the LGFA. I will now take any questions you may have.
Thank you. I note in there there's still $45,000 outstanding from local halls that aren't owned by council. It's unusual that they're not applying for those funds. So if anyone knows any, I know you've sent out reminders, but you know, $45,000 outstanding in small communities, I'm sure that they'll be wanting it for something. So maybe councillors remind those that, you know, with those halls, just to put those applications in. Are there any other questions or comments?
Yes, Mayor Gary. Just regarding that Parks and Reserves 150,000 underspent, is that tie up with the 250,000 in the LTP for the open spaces further on the agenda? Is that from that same amount of money?
Off the top of my head, I'm not 100% sure, but I can have a look into it for you.
Okay, thank you. So that's just because we can't get contractors to do some of those tasks. And I guess it's more of a service and assets question, but I mean, I see in this area, there's guys advertising gardening services. Perhaps we should be spreading the net a bit wider and, you know, looking to rectify that, because while this is happening, there's a lot of places looking pretty untidy, perhaps, of small jobs that just aren't getting done. Thank you.
No, I can follow it up with the community facilities team, but yeah, that's the message that I've been told and we've heard.
No, thanks for that, Councillor Duffy. I know there's people here from that will be looking into that, because it's a very pertinent question. Thank you. Any further questions? If not, we have the recommendation that we receive this report, item 8.1, as the councillor move that in that direction. Councillor Douglas. So is there a seconder?
I will.
Thanks,
Mary,
Councillor Duffy. Probably quicker if you just put your hand up. That would be good. I can actually see everybody now, which is great.
And I need to hear a voice too, please.
Yep. So that's moved by Councillor Douglas and seconded by Councillor Duffy. All those in favour, raise your hands. I can't see all hands, but against.
Get a voice.
Yep. That's carried. Thank you so much for that. Next item on the agenda is the open spaces project report, and that is on page 37 of your agenda.
And I don't have the officers here. Oh, actually, I tell if about they are here with the group manager. Right,
Cool.
they're in.
Well, no, yep. Cheers. Thank you. Floor is yours. Screen is yours.
Well, thank you, Your Worship, for having me here today to talk about this report. I'll take that this report has been read. This report outlines the delivery plan for $5.5 million that was tagged in the 2018 LTP for Open Spaces project. We've broken this project down into 3 key areas: activation and management, strategic district projects, and community projects fund. Activation management is around adequately resourcing the team involved in delivering this project to make sure that we can see its success. The strategic district projects are projects that have been identified through multiple documents, as well as through a round of engagement that has been done with our communities around ensuring that we are delivering projects in line with our open spaces strategy. And the Community Projects Fund is allowing our communities to apply for funding up to $50,000 to spend within their open spaces on projects such as barbecues or community events. And we are just working through setting up the allocation mechanism for this fund. Would you like to add anything?
No, that's a good outline.
I'm happy to take any question.
Thank you. Certainly a very good report on where it's at. Are there any questions or comments from councillors? Councillor Owen.
Thank you. I'd like to commend the staff on the idea of having the community fund that groups can apply to. It's a regular frustration we hear, even at a community board level, of the time it takes to get something incorporated into an LTP and to eventually see it happen. And often it means that groups just end up going ahead and doing their own thing anyway because they get frustrated with the length of time. So I see this as a good step in the right direction of help addressing some of those challenges. So thank you for doing that.
Certainly a good way of recording it and follow up. That's great. Councillor Scott, then Councillor Kramer.
That's why it didn't work, Your Worship. Just supporting Councillor Owen's comments, and just a question on that as well about the 50k limit. So if the community board or group was outside of that limit, is there any scope to access any more of that funding, or is that sort of set in concrete?
Through you, Your Worship, we set it at sort of 50 to try to make the $1 million go as far as we can, with the idea that there's some criteria that would need to be met. Obviously, our preference would be that these applications would be co-funded, and that the local community groups might be looking to do a bit of fundraising themselves, and then they could apply for this for some extra. But we could easily work through what that looked like on a one-off basis. But I guess we wanted to make sure that $1 million got to as many communities as possible, and felt that up to sort of 50 felt about right.
Cool, thank you. And just the other question, if I may, is I noticed you did a bit of work with the Youth Council on getting some feedback from them. Is that information available for us to have a look at on what feedback they brought forward?
Through you, Your Worship, yes, we can make that available for you. We had a workshop with them, so we've got that written down.
Cool, thank you.
Councillor Kramer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just some clarification, I suppose, and also some assurance. If we go out and we're seeking this information, are we capable of delivering these projects? Considering we've got a code red, we've got difficulties in getting materials, getting resources, are these still achievable, and if so, how?
Through Your Worship, we've definitely given that very good consideration. As you'll see in the cash flow, The actual bulk of the projects don't start really for a good 12 to 24 months of scale projects anyway, of those real strategic nature. Part of the project is obviously to ensure it is resourced adequately. So we have detailed in there the dedicated open spaces lead. So that person will be dedicated to setting up and ensuring that this project is delivered, communicated, reported back to council and governance. And so we're reasonably comfortable we've got the resources to support the project and ensure that it's delivered well. It is a dedicated role because there is quite a lot of work just in that $5.4 million. But we're confident that we've got the resources to deliver it if this report is approved. And the timing will allow us to ensure that we have engaged with the market before that work is effectively rolled out and delivered. I'm hoping that's answered your question, Councillor Kramer.
Yeah, thanks for that, Nick. It's just those that are concerns are in the back of your mind in this new environment that we're in. So I hate to raise people's expectations and then we don't deliver. So if we're going to go out there and we've got this these proposals, then we're going to make sure that we actually deliver on those as well. So thanks for your explanation. Cheers.
Councillor Keast.
Thank you. And yes, that mute button is a bit slow, but anyway, here I am. My key on this is actually around the communication with councillors, community boards, and also the community about what we are actually planning here and checking so that there are no surprises. I note that Nick said in what he was just saying there, that it was delivered and communicated, but actually we need to really make sure that we do the communication first and make sure that everybody knows that the local, I presume it's a local fund that isn't going to be restricted to, like that we will have input into the criteria around that. I see there's a matrix going to be made up, which is always a bit nerve-wracking. So yeah, would just really like to sort of get in, whilst you could say that I want to get the detail, but I do want to understand how this is going to all work, because there's a lot of money there and it needs to be made sure that it's effectively and efficiently spent.
So through you, Your Worship, absolutely 100% right, and that's why in our cash forecast we've allowed for the next 12 months really on that engagement piece through two mechanisms. One is obviously through the SDC resources that will be leading this internally, but two, the external resource through Active Southland, who will be very active out in our wider communities, understanding how our spaces are being used, where there's more value to be added, and they will be obviously feeding that information back into us to ensure that any projects in the future are actually meeting the demands of the community. So we're absolutely very, very mindful that the next step for us, once approved, is that engagement piece with our community boards, community, and schools, sports organisations, and the like right around our district, before we start going and spending money and effectively in the wrong place.
Thank you.
Well said. Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
If I may, Gary, it's Paul here.
Sorry, Councillor Ford, then Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. I'm just curious that if we go out and spend money on these assets, and if there's a sort of a $50,000 figure on that, the regions then have to look after them. So we need to know how we're going to do that for budgeting of that methodology of keeping it tidy, keeping it up to speed. Can we have a comment on that, please?
Through you, Worship. So the $1 million that's set aside for the community, wellbeing piece or community projects, the idea behind that is that they would be projects that would be less about adding assets or council assets and more about community facilities, i.e. For an example, at Terramere Bay, obviously the Lions have a barbecue there that they maintain. So while it's an asset on council land, effectively it's not coming at the cost of a ratepayer to be managing that. So so that up to 50, that's part of the $1 million, which is community fund. We've obviously got the other $4.5 million, which would be assigned in various ways, which would have larger input into some of our assets, which would include consideration around long-term maintenance and the like. So I'd be reasonably confident that we're not looking to add a whole lot of assets that's going to come at the cost of the ratepayers in the future. Would be making sure that wasn't the case.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a fair explanation, but I was a bit mindful that our new helipad that's coming was delegated to Future Rakia and the Health Committee to manage, as if staff had been passing the buck. As accordingly, new barbecue at Butterfields, it's delegated to the Lions, and almost as if that was being passed the buck as far as maintenance was concerned as well. So somewhere along the line, we still have to understand the responsibility for community, or it became a lot of paperwork and cumbersome enough to keep up with, but as long as we just keep a finger on that.
Yes, through your worship, that is really the intent of that $1 million put aside over the 5 years, to allow those sorts of projects to happen quickly and actually and not be the frustrations that they have been in the past around those community-led type projects that they want to get on and get done. But we obviously need to be mindful at the end of the day too. Anything that we obviously allow to be built or associated with our land or reserves, obviously there needs to be agreement in place around who in the end of the day maintains those. So that would be part of the criteria in regards to applying for that funding, in regards to how it's going to be. Is there an expectation that STC and ratepayers continue to maintain it, or is the project effectively self-maintained?
Yeah, good point. Especially there's a few things around the countryside that have been let go because people that had the good ideas have gone. But that's good to follow that. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. It's sort of the same vein as my question earlier in a way. So the LTP yearly budget, so that is totally divorced from Parks and Reserves money, I presume.
Through your worship, yes, that is correct. That is part of the 5.4 million. That's
Sure.
250 was for this year. We haven't. There's only one small part of that we've actually started to spend, which was the air contribution to the district-wide open spaces and places strategy. Obviously, once we get the approval today, that will obviously ramp up this year.
Yeah. So, like on this year, there's $250,000. So we've got to the end of June, and I'm not suggesting a spending spree for the sake of it, but have you got projects in mind to use that money in this financial year? And if not, will it roll over from there?
Through you, your worship, the initial spend in this year is about setting up the projects so that when we kick off into next financial, we have them well established and the ball rolling with them all.
Yeah, through you. I very much doubt we will spend the full 250 in this year. So anything would be rolled into next year and made sure that it's well planned for.
Yeah, but there is 125 for strategic projects in that. So are they identified at this point or not?
Through you, your worship, yes, there is some that we want to get started on. Things like looking at the renewal of some of the signage around the district, especially in some of our reserves. There's a website piece that we're looking to get underway, which is ensuring that we've got all our reserves mapped and the community can find them. So there is some work that will happen quite quickly. That's not physical, so much physical asset, but they are obviously strategic projects that we're looking to kick off as soon as we can.
Okay. Yeah, and then there's the activation and management budget for the next 2 years is like 225,000, and eventually it drops down to 100. Is that because it's envisaged that once you get things rolling, that money won't have such a high requirement? And is that like if money's not used for activation and management, can that go into projects?
Through your worship, yes, that's correct. So that is the the way that the money's been set out in the RTP,
Budget,
obviously it ramps up to a certain point once we've actually got all the key larger scale projects identified, and then of course the actual management of that will drop off. And some of the activation management work is actually in the first probably 12 to 24 months is actually identifying some of those projects as well. So once they've been identified, obviously that role would drop back. In regards to effectively, it's one whole fund. So we're looking to use that fund as wisely as we can. So if there's unders and overs, then effectively they would be moved to where they are best appropriate. However, we would be looking to regularly report back on the progress of this project, where it's being spent, under the delegations of the Services and Asset Committee. We would be reporting this back as a strategic project, the same as we've done with the likes of the Te Anau Wastewater Project and others that have a separate report, so that governance can be ensured that we're spending everything wisely.
Thank you.
Councillor Keast.
Thank you for that, and thanks, Nick. You touched on what I was actually going to say. Can we add into the recommendation, please, some time frame around reporting the outcomes of this and progress of this project into a report, like coming back to councillors on a regular basis? I don't see that in the recommendation, so I think that would be give it a bit more strength there.
Through your worship, happy to add that into the recommendations, and once we get the ball rolling, we can add it regularly into the Services and Asset Committee reports.
So what sort of time frame do you reckon? Quarterly, half yearly?
That's so likes of the, sorry, through your worship, the likes of the Te Anau Wastewater Project, we gave a full report on that every second Services and Asset Committee meeting. So that would be, what are they, 6 weeks apart? So 12 weekly.
Sounds good, thank you.
So wording along the lines of Fiona, wording along the lines agrees to approve the delivery plan for the open spaces project with 12 weekly reports.
Report quarterly to the Services and Assets Committee on progress.
How does that sound, Councillor Keast?
That sounds fine, and I will be happy to move that in that direction.
Councillor Keast has moved that. Unless there's any further comments or questions, I will ask for a seconder.
I'll second it.
Seconded. Councillor Byers, have you got a question? Your mute button, Councillor Byers.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Your Worship. I note the open spaces encouraging a sense of pride in our open spaces, and the bringing into art and culture into these spaces. Is there any work in this where we're looking at ways to manage our open spaces without poisoning them?
Through you, Your Worship. So absolutely, that's a piece of work. So we are looking at our reserves and some of our open spaces and how they're being used, and do we need to consider different ways of using them rather than just mowing them or spraying them? Obviously it comes at a cost of the ratepayer to mow some of these reserves, and are they actually better to be used for other activities? So that is part of the work that we would be doing.
Because I understand there is a lot of reserves around the country where they don't mow, they choose to leave them grow wild, and people appreciate the flowers, for example. So and Taramia Bay here, we have a lot of people walking across, kids in bare feet, but walking across poisoned strips of earth, which I think there's room to improve on that. I'm just hopeful that that's going to be included in some of this work.
Certainly something that become part of the management stuff with this, Councillor Byers. There's no doubt about that, and it will be based on what is there, I'm guessing, which is what Nick has sort of touched on. Every case will be different. Councillor Menzies.
Thank you, Mayor. I just note that is it Christchurch Gardens just recently arranged to leave part of their gardens and plant them in wildflowers to attract the bees, given the concerns about the numbers of bees and what's threatening their ability to keep the hive numbers as they have been in the past. So yeah, I think that would be a great idea.
Through your worship, absolutely, that's something we've talked about as a project team. Once we identify some of those spaces that or reserves that are possibly better returned to native or flower or tree areas, rather than obviously what we have at the moment, which is obviously mowing a number of them, is absolutely a piece of work that we want to consider as part of this project.
Thank you. Councillor Kramer.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Just following on from that immediate discussion, that I would presume that there'll be good consultation with the community boards if those sort of actions are going to be followed. So we've got to make sure we got the community boards buy-in as well. I think it's a great idea. Let's make sure we got the right communication people behind us. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I believe you seconded that too, Councillor Kramer.
I did.
All right, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you for the work on that one. All right, the next item on the agenda is the Winton Tianao Office Project Financial Update. Item 8.3 on page 43 with recommendations on 44. And Mark Day is going to present that.
I'll take this report as read. However, it's just an update on where we are in terms of the finances to do with both the Winton and Tianao Office project. Obviously, we've had some issues with the Winton project in terms of getting materials and getting work done due to the current environment, and the Tianao Office project has come about due to an increase in staff numbers utilising that facility. So I'm happy to take any questions from the council.
Thank you. And I see it's a report that we just need to receive, but Councillor Kramer, you've got your hand up, and then Councillor Owen.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Just a query, a significant increase in staff numbers in the Tianao office. Who's all working out of that office? We're now looking at 14 people working out of that office.
My understanding is that the majority of those people are working for the building team, and they were originally going to be working from home. However, now the operations they're doing mean that they're working out of that office.
Just to follow on from that, if you're indicating that the majority are the building team, I think there's 2 or 3 staff that have worked there for quite some time. So are you indicating there's 11 building staff working out of that office? If so, I've got no idea what on earth they would be doing.
Yeah. In terms of numbers, I would probably need to refer that back to the group manager of that team.
Yeah, but also I don't think you'd fit 14 people working on that ground floor. I think you'd have some safety issues there, and I'm sure there would be a limited number of people that can work on one floor space. So I'm just a little bit concerned that there's an increase of that sort of magnitude of staff working out of that office. And the other question I have is, I see that there's been discussions with the building owner, and we've got a lease for another, 3 or 5 years, and the alterations at our cost. So I'm just not too comfortable where this is sitting at the moment.
Something I can discuss with the Chief Executive if you like, Councillor Kramer, because 14 did hit me in the eyes.
Certainly hit mine.
Through you, Your Worship, we can come back to council in regards to the makeup of those staff. We have done a workout plan in regards to being able to how many we could fit. The design of it is very similar to basically the same as what we've got across all the offices now in regards to the stand-up desk, which are obviously smaller than what's probably in there now. I do know that it is a mix of regulatory roles up there. And I think, and I can't talk obviously from Matt, the GM, but obviously Te Anau is a difficult area often to resource, and from what I understand, it became clear that they had some people that were based up that way that would be working for STC, and I believe that they're working for wider than just the Te Anau region. But actually friends, oh no, sorry, it's Matt, isn't it? And in regards to the actual the lease agreement, we had a discussion with the landlord. He has not raised his the rent for STC in the last 2 years.
You've read
that. Sorry, Councillor Kramer.
Yeah, I actually read that. Yep.
And has agreed that obviously the rent won't be increased over the period of the new lease. We looked at what options we had and the cost for us to take up a new lease somewhere else, as well as what we would be paying for a fit out, would be substantial. And also that it was our responsibility to originally to do the carpets, which is included in that value, so that is on us. There's a value within what we're proposing, which will be a security upgrade, which again would be a requirement of our operations, and all the desks in the various. So really the only element that I guess we're making the improvement on is the heating and ventilation.
Okay, I certainly thanks for that, but I certainly like an explanation as to the number of 14 people will be working at the office. That would be appreciated, and we can do that offline. Thanks.
Thank you.
I could quickly give you an update on that, just from my experience of the regulatory environmental services team, and also that area. So there was roughly one dog person working with animal control, 3 in the planning area, including of regulatory matters, 4 to 5 building, depending on the workload that's up there. A waters person, there's 3 or 4 hot desks, and a front customer services position as well. So the hot desks are to allow for community partnership leaders, roading team, team leaders, or anybody that needs to come up and do other work up there. I hope that's of assistance.
It is. Sorry to interrupt, it is, but all those people are not there all at the same time. So you're not going to have 14 people working out of that office at any one time. So it's as you say, the hot desk. So just a bit of explanation of how that's going to be working. It just seemed a significant increase. That was all, and that's what was my concern.
Thank you, Councillor Owen, Councillor Menzies, Councillor Harper.
Thank you. I just wanted to check: is it a typo in the report that 3 desks are going to cost over $10,000?
Through your worship, yes, that would be incorrect. I think there's about does it say 3? Agile 3 is the must be the brand. Agile 3 desks, because there'll be about 15 of those desks. They're about I think around about $800 each.
So the number Agile 3 is the name of the disk as opposed to the number of disks.
Thank you, Councillor Menzies.
Thank you. That was the same question I had, because I was reading it 3 desks as well, and then I thought that that related to building work, or what is it? And I'm presuming those desks, the need for extra desks can't be transferred from Invercargill, given it was expected that some of those 14 people would have been working from home or out of Invercargill at another time.
Okay, Councillor Harper.
Yes, Your Worship. Just a query there on the same situation. The contingency fund down the bottom there, 13,142. I see that's out of 20%. why has this contingency fund gone up from over the years? It's been 8, 10, 12, and now it's up to 20. Is there an explanation for the reason why it's gone up that high?
I got a quote for some windows, Councillor Harper, and the contingency fee for that was 40%. It's just the way the market is at the moment. It's just so unpredictable. That's my answer. I don't know if that's right, Nick.
Yep. Through your worship, absolutely. What we've been finding is 10% has been typical for a long time, but right at this point in time, we're finding that we're at the mercy of the market and often paying a premium to actually get something here on time. So we wanted to make sure we had actually allowed an adequate contingency so that we're not coming back with unbudgeted. Obviously, we've got a pretty good dedicated project team that watch every penny, so we wouldn't be spending anything that doesn't need to be spent, and it would be, any savings would be returned to the coffers.
Yeah. Okay. Now the next little query is on that total amount there. There's nothing written there about the installation of all these things. Is that included in the price?
Through your worship, yes, it is. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Menzies, have you got your hand back up?
Yes, I have, thank you. I was just a query around the installation of the double glazing at Winton office, which obviously needs to occur. Was that not in the initial quotes provided? Was that overlooked?
Through you, your worship, we had a cost option at the time of the original project for double glazing. And what we had hoped was that we would make enough savings through the contingency to add that in. Unfortunately, with what we found, obviously, with the COVID delays to that project and the obviously additional non-toxic mold we found under the floor, that obviously didn't allow us to bring that piece of work back into the original contingency that was allowed. So hence, we want to ensure that the project is now completed and that double glazing is installed. We have obviously installed all new heating and ventilation into that building. So completing the double glazing would be ideal.
Yes, thank you. And I assume we can be confident that all mould has been located and got rid of.
Through your worship, yeah, absolutely. That's something we've worked tirelessly to make sure that every area we've found is ensured that has been cleaned, tested, and will be regularly tested to make sure we don't have anything else.
Okay, thank you. That will include areas that are hidden from view, which was where the initial assessment was made.
Through your worship, yes, that's correct. So the areas that we've obviously opened up will have been cleaned down and given time to ensure that nothing has grown back.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions in relation to this matter? Don't appear to be. As a councillor, can move item 8.3 with that recommendation that we received the report. Councillor Kramer, seconded. Councillor Harper, all those in favour? Perfect. Against? Carried. Thank you so much for that. Next item on the agenda is the John Street upgrade Te Anea footpath renewals budget, and Ben is going to present this report.
Right, they're just coming. Right, they're there.
Cheers. Ben, the screen is yours.
Right, unmute Ben.
Hello, everyone.
Cool. Morning.
Through you, Mr. Worship. So the purpose of this.
Yes. Ben, the screen is yours.
Oh, sorry.
We've got an echo going there somewhere.
Is this?
Unmute Ben. Ooh.
Am I muted?
No, you're coming through loud and
We
clear.
can hear
It's
you.
coming through good now. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you to you, Mr. Worship. The purposes. Sorry, how's that? I had the YouTube clip playing in the background of the meeting.
Much better, thank you.
The purpose of this report is to request unbudgeted expenditures for the Winton John Street footpath and car park upgrades and the Tianao footpath renewals. Both of these unbudgeted expenditures were recommended to council from the appropriate community boards, being Ariti and Fiordland. For the Winton John Street footpath and car park upgrade, this was originally budgeted in the long-term plan for 120,000. However, after receiving costs to construct, it was higher than the originally budgeted for in the long-term plan. However, the prices received are reflective of the current market that we are in. Therefore, staff have requested an unbudgeted expenditure of $45,000 from the Winton Property Sales Reserve to proceed with this project. As part of this $45,000, this also includes a $15,000 contingency that if not spent will be returned to the reserve. As part of this recommendation was, the Ariti Community Board recommended this to council on the 6th of December meeting. There will be no future impacts on rates from this unbudgeted expenditure. For the Tianao footpath renewals, as a result of the Wakakatahi oversubscribing their funding, council has received reduced funding for footpath renewals. As a result, we have had to reprioritise the district program for the year, and as part of this, the footpath sites in Tianao, being Quinton Drive and Matai Street, have not received funding assistance. Therefore, the Ariti Community Board have requested an unbudgeted expenditure of $40,456 out of the Tianao General Reserves to locally fund the renewals. This would also not have any future impact on rates. So as part of this report, we have presented two recommendations to council, being D and E, for the first one being the unbudgeted expenditure for the John Street footpath and parking upgrade to be funded from the Winton property sales, and the unbudgeted expenditure of $40,456 to be funded from the Tianao General Reserves. At this point, I'll take any questions.
Thank you for that. And certainly the money's there, sitting there waiting for this recommendation. Councillor Harper.
Yes, Your Honour. Paragraph 3 there, Ben, just doesn't seem to read right when you've got the 45,000 unbudgeted expenditure, and then this includes a 10% contingency, which should only be 4,500. So is that 15,000 included something else apart from the 45?
Sorry, that would be 10%. That would be 10% of the overall project.
10% of the overall. Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Menzies.
Thank you, Mayor. It's just a comment, really, that it's clear that in order to have these projects completed, and the reduction in funding from Wakakotahi has meant that our communities are moving into using reserves in order to get projects completed. Because I guess leaving them uncompleted creates concerns for the community in terms of wait time for when this is going to be done. So it's just another hidden impact of the reduction of funding overall from Waka Kotahi.
Exactly, just through their overfunding. Yeah, absolutely. Or underfunding as well. Okay, any further questions? All right, you have the recommendation. Someone happy to move recommendation 8.4? Councillor Fraser is moving. Is there a seconder? Councillor Scott. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. That is the end of the meeting. I'll declare this meeting closed. We'll go offline and we will come back and say 2 minutes to hear, or do we want a 5-minute break, 4 or 5 minute break? 4 or 5 minute break to come back and hear from Tim Gibson. So if we can be back here by just after or just before 20 past would be great.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, Ricardo, you